The NBA playoff field is set. We just wait for seeding now after the first few games are done. As we get a little closer matchups, what are the storylines and predictions you have for before we start play?
Sam, after you.
I was gonna say the same thing for you too, Drew. But this is the first time hearing that the playoff bracket is set. And I think what's impressive to me, and maybe not impressive in a good way, is that this is gonna be the first year in a while where we don't have the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs. And they've been pretty good the last 5 seasons. They were in the bubble. I don't know if they ended up making the playoff bracket out of the bubble, but they were for sure invited to the NBA bubble in Disney
Don't want
World.
to cut you off. Don't want to cut you off real quick, but we do have Nazir.
Yo, can you hear me?
Oh boy.
Yeah, we
Can you hear
can.
me? Can you boys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How was your day
You should
yesterday?
ask that a couple more times. Ask that a couple more times. I don't know if I can hear you.
10 more
Can
times.
you hear me? Can you hear me? Yo, what we
How
talking
you feeling?
about?
How's
I'm
work?
feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. Just got off of work and stuff. I had to come in and chime in on the conversation. I don't know what the topic is, but guarantee I'm gonna argue about it.
First, we talk about the NBA playoff. The field is set. We're looking for the storylines, predictions of the matchups of play. We're just waiting on the seeding to fill out the playoff bracket. So let me throw that graphic back on up for us.
And it's like I said, it's impressive in a way almost that the Phoenix Suns are not in the playoffs this year with a roster that on paper is that talented, with just full of legitimate all time talents. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, just to name a few. Bradley Beal, when he was at the top of his game, was an amazing basketball player. Yes, he's not at the top of his game anymore, but that's besides the point. On paper, this Suns team is arguably one of the best in the NBA, and they are not even in the top 10 seeds in the Western Conference. That just blows my mind that this year we're not going to see a Kevin Durant or Devin Booker in the playoffs.
1 second. You said it's surprising. I'm not surprised at all, personally, because the
Really?
roster. I don't think the roster is that great at all, personally. Like you get obviously, like you said, KD and Booker, great, but then it just drops. Obviously, Bradley Beal is not who he was, or doesn't want to be who he was because he's getting paid 150 million. Doesn't really matter. And then you got Grayson Allen, he's a good role player, but then you got Bol, who doesn't try. He up to his potential, I should say. Tyus Jones is okay. Cody Martin, Damian Lee, these guys aren't really meant for a winning roster. Nick Richards they got in that trade with Charlotte, which I don't think has done anything for them in the paint. And Mason Plumlee, who hasn't played much, and Royce O'Neal's pretty good. But the team overall, to me, is just not where it should be. And, a lot of that has to do with Kevin Durant and going from the Nets to the Suns and them giving up their entire roster who was in that finals run against the Bucks that year. But I'm not really surprised. I thought this was going to be the result the whole time because they don't play defense. So
They're just not deep. They're just not deep, and they
Not deep at all.
don't get coached well. And
Yeah.
like you said, it feels like it's sort of a loser culture where not everybody's giving their effort, and that's really in a Western Conference like this, where there's a few, like 2 or 3 teams at the top, and everybody else is in that same bubble. You're going to end up at the bottom of that chain if you're not putting in the effort. And it seems like the attitude around this team, especially in the second half of the season, was just abysmal.
Right. And
that is true.
Off. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
I was looking like why I don't even know why they needed to get Bradley Beal in the first place. I never understood that move to begin with. I mean,
another scoring option to replace Bridges and whoever else, Chris Paul, and they had another Payne. They had Cam Johnson on the team. Yeah, that I'll never understand. They had a great young core surrounding Devin Booker, their best player.
They got to the finals with Mikal Bridges and Ayton in them.
They were
Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and that team. I mean, realistically speaking, they. I mean, you just got to think about it this way: they were up 2-0 on the champions that year. They were up 2-0 and played 4 extremely close games at one point or another. All 4 of those games were really close with the Bucks in the 2021 NBA Finals, and then you go blow up the team. Now, when you have a chance to bring in Kevin Durant, who's arguably a top 10 player of all time, you make that happen. You just make that happen, regardless of who you have to give up. You're going to have to give some to get some. And even at his age, he's still doing it at the highest level, right? Bradley Beal, yes, that's another question mark. And that I was very, very glad that when he was in trade talks again at the deadline this year, that the Bucks decided to take their name out of that ring. Yes, would having the name value of Bradley Beal make the team look a little scarier? Sure, but he's just not the same player anymore as he was on the Wizards. It's blowing. They blew up the team a little bit, but they still have 5 guys in double-digit scoring every night. Nick Richards and Royce O'Neal are nice fourth, fifth options, especially Royce O'Neal coming off the bench. Nurkic, he's been hurt most of the season. He hasn't been very productive at all.
He's
If
out of
I'm
there.
not
He's in
mistaken,
Charlotte.
I'm pretty sure is
Yeah,
he out the rest of the season? If I'm
He's
not
in-
mistaken, or
He's in Charlotte. Nurkic.
he's
Yeah.
in Charlotte now?
Yeah, they traded him for.
I must
Nurkic.
be tripping.
Yeah,
I must be tripping then.
but that
But-
was a deadline move, wasn't it?
Him and Bud didn't get along, so they
I don't know
You are tripping
how-
if you think that Royce O'Neal is a fourth option on a winning.
I
That's
don't
what I
know
mean.
how I let that Nurkic trade slide through the cracks in the floor, but
wasn't great.
that's besides the point.
If-
They still have decent guys on the team. It's not like it's not that drastic of a fall off is the point I'm trying to make here, which is why it's impressive in a bad way to me that this team is not in the playoffs. I mean, they expanded to 10 teams per conference. Realistic, throw that graphic back up there. They expanded to 10 teams per conference, and the Phoenix Suns, with 2 of the 75 best players of all time on the same team, with a solid third option and Bradley Beal, say what you want about Bradley Beal, still solid as a third option, did not make the playoffs as one of the top 10 out of 15 teams in that conference.
Well, you need depth in the West.
Well, I
man.
mean,
You need it.
look at those 10
Even the
teams,
Kings have
though.
it.
Look at those 10 teams, though. Those 10 teams aren't like no slouches. I mean, when you got a guy like when you trade away De'Aaron Fox from like the Kings did, you get back a Zach LaVine, who's another purified scorer. Yes, they are not going to have like a floor general like Chris Paul or anything like that, but they're still a dangerous team when you think about it. Then you got the Mavericks. Yes, they didn't have Kyrie, but before then they had so many wins before he got hurt that it was ultimately too much for the Suns to come back up to. And then you got the Grizzlies, who have Ja Morant and a big 3 down there, and then you also have Anthony Edwards, who was literally in the Western Conference Finals last year. So it's like those 10 teams is a hard. I mean,
Who
you could
swept the
ultimately
Suns,
make a
by the way.
case for like 12 teams that could potentially make the playoffs out of that seat or out of the West.
And now, if everything goes chalk, the T Wolves get OKC in the first round.
Oh man, what a
How
series!
about that for a first round matchup?
That's the
Shea
West,
and
baby.
AAE.
That's going to 7, man. The Thunder's fans should be very nervous about that if they get either the Grizzlies or the Timberwolves. It's not going to be fun for them at all. And I stand by that. I mean, they'd probably be better off playing the Grizzlies.
Yes,
Because the
that's
Grizzlies,
exactly what I was about to say.
the Grizzlies don't match up very well with them. But the Timberwolves match up very, very well.
Timberwolves, they got
keep
depth,
it
they
from the
got
ladies.
defense, they got AE, who's literally a bona fide to put a 40, average of 30 in a series.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. They got swept last year, the Suns, and after that, I was just not convinced because that's the second time we've seen Kevin Durant get swept in the past like 5 years, and it's just I don't know, man. And in the first round as well, and that team is just not built for a run. And me being, kind of a Phoenix lover, when my family lives down there, I've been always looked into them a little bit, and it's just they just never been great and since the finals, I guess. And teams just got to learn not to ruin a young core, especially for a superstar. I think when you trade for Kevin Durant, people know that you're going to have to give up so much stuff because he's still averaging 28 points per game. So like he's 7 foot, can do anything on offense, can play relatively great defense sometimes. Not a great rebounder, but doesn't matter because the scoring makes up for it. So you're going to have to give up pieces and draft picks for that. And it just ruined the Suns. And I think that's a perfect example on why you shouldn't do something like that. And I mean, the Mavericks kind of did the exact opposite and gave up little or got little back, I should say.
Well, how about look at the Nuggets? Where are they at? They're at the 4th spot.
That's a horrible matchup for them. I'm not gonna lie.
I know the Clippers, I think, can win that.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
That'd
That's
be
a horrible.
Especially now that Malone is out and there's no consistency in the coaching staff, it's time to just saddle up and get ready to head home for the offseason.
Hey,
for
That's
Denver.
exactly what I'm about to bring up
is
about the
having a
Nuggets.
career year.
It came out that Malone was asked how the team took his message after a bad game against the Blazers, and this was like I think a game or two right before he was fired. his response was, "I didn't really care. My job is to be honest, sometimes brutally honest." And the guys that are full of S won't hear it. They'll say coach is tripping, and the guys who maybe do really care will. They're not going to go back and watch their minutes. Nobody watches their minutes. Nobody watches film, so we'll have to show them the film. And I said, if somebody disagrees with me, please speak up. So
He's being a
really,
coach.
he
He's being
got
a coach.
fired for being a coach.
Yeah, he's being a coach. I don't get it. Businesses don't like that,
This
bro.
is
They don't like when the coaches is in full control. They
See,
want
in the league now, they pander to young talent. They baby. You don't want the hard nosed coaching. You don't want people to play heavy minutes. You don't want to go out there and play back to backs. The league is starting to become really soft, and it's like really starting to irritate me.
You know what happened? I'm not sure if I said it on here or where I said it really, but this is the risk that the league decided to take when they decided to empower the players more. Now, am I all for the players getting their bag? Yes, of course.
and the commissioner.
Get your money. However, letting the players take over as basically their own GMs at this point has ruined the NBA. And pretty soon, we are going to see a form of a coach's strike, because if the expectation from your players is you have to win the finals in year one or you're not our guy, nobody's going to want to coach in the NBA anymore. Not a single soul will want to be a coach for a team that has zero faith in you unless you go 82-0 and then sweep in the playoffs.
I think you got to move that back to 3-point line. I think that's the thing that's ruined the NBA is teams taking 45 3-point shots a game.
No,
That's
Drew.
up there too, and that becomes another question. Look,
move
15
on.
years ago, Stephen Curry, obviously one of, if not, depending on how you look at basketball, the greatest basketball player ever, right? He's up there. He's for sure up there. But did he do more harm to the sport itself?
Oh, my goodness.
The sport itself. No, not the NBA, but the sport itself. We're talking about we had to move the 3-point line back and try and introduce more twos, more small ball, more getting down low in the paint to score.
That's a
Who's
coaching
to
issue.
blame?
That is a coaching issue.
Yeah, that's a
That is
coaching
not-
issue.
that is
I wouldn't
not
say that's a
Stephen Curry.
player.
No, look, listen.
I'm not
listen.
saying it is, but
Hold on,
that's
hold on.
something. That's a conversation that A, should be had, and B, is going to be had as more collective bargaining agreements start to come and go through the NBA. Because another CBA is coming up soon. I'm pretty
that's
sure.
a coaching issue, though. That's
I'm not
not a
mistaken-
Steph Curry issue.
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying that is a Steph Curry. I'm just saying that conversation should be had and is going to be had as we keep going over the next couple seasons until this current CBA runs out.
Right, but that would take the whole purpose away of the game. Like if you're moving the 3-point line back, I mean that's legitimately a coaching issue. Everyone wants to play like Steph. And no one wants to play like Kobe did, or Mike did, or Penny Hardaway. No one wants to play like that.
Because threes get you the most amount of points, and most amount of points win you games.
And the most amount of points can lead to awards and higher seeds and such and such. Yes, we understand that, but Steph did probably the best thing they could for the game because it improved everyone's talent. In my opinion, I think everyone can say that the NBA is at its peak talent right now. Even the worst teams have these amazing players that the normal person could not guard or could not defend. So I think that moving the 3-point line would just ruin the whole purpose of the game and ruin coaching in general, because then you have to just come up with this new game plan that we've never seen. And we just don't want to see that. We don't want to redo. We don't want to redo the game. We want to just continuate the game and make sure that, we're not taking as many threes because it's a liability sometimes. And
All right. So for you then, why is viewership going down for the NBA?
Why is viewership going down?
What do you see as the issue?
Well, I think that there's a lot of games and there's the streaming aspect of it. No one really knows what to use anymore when it comes to finding the games, and the refereeing is a little bit tedious. I will say the 3-point margin is a lot, but I mean the Celtics just passed the Warriors, 2016 Warriors, in 3-point makes of the year or something like that. So I wouldn't say that's the issue. I would say there's a whole multitude of issues that kind of come up with the views being so low.
All right, I'll take my 3-point line back. We don't need to do that as much as we need to get rid of the local TV blackout. So that's the biggest thing.
Issue. I think that's the biggest issue personally, because what are you gonna do? You're gonna pay for 4 outlets? No.
Across all sports too. I mean, the NFL is one thing. You get
Yeah, one.
You get
can
at
red zone,
least
at least.
4 games a week, right?
Right.
You get Thursday night if you decide, even if you don't pay for Amazon Prime. Let's say you don't, you get 1 game at noon, and 2 games really at noon, depending on if you want to watch Fox or CBS. You get 2 games at 3. You get Sunday Night Football, and you get Monday Night Football on ESPN. So you're getting 6 games a week guaranteed on national television. And one of those games is going to be your team unless they're on Thursday Night Football. MLB, if you live in Iowa, you cannot watch the Royals, Cubs, White Sox,
That's crazy.
Twins, or the Cardinals.
I
You
didn't
can't
know
watch
that.
any of those 5 teams if you just live in Iowa. All sports need to get rid of blackouts.
Even
Yeah, that's a problem. So
And Sunday
we
Night
look at-
Baseball's done too. The ESPN didn't renew the partnership.
Yep, after 2025, it's done.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, as we look at that, we can show you the graphic real quick of all the coaches that's been fired. They've been fired within 2 or 3 years after winning a championship, and it's only getting worse and worse for coaching in the NBA or NFL. You know, the NFL is doing the same thing.